Hi, and welcome everybody to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. I'm professional sports handicapper Ross Benjamin of RBWins.com. It's another edition of the Winner's Circle. And like every Monday, I am joined by Mr. Doug Upstone of DocSports.com, and we're going to have a couple of nationally televised college football free picks for you on Saturday's card. But before we get to that, without further ado, Mr. Upstone, I hope you had a better weekend than you had the weekend before.
Yeah, well, I had a nice winner on Oklahoma State, but so that was good. But I know you're going to smile when I tell you this, but I gave out Pittsburgh last week on the show last Monday, and I ended up playing Pittsburgh myself, and lo and behold, the game went to overtime, and it went against me. What are the chances, Ross? I'm just confounded that could possibly happen to me after 12 and a half years.
Yeah, I
But
know.
no. So that's what took me down was that. So I had a little bit of an off week because of that, but hit the big play. So that was good. And let's say, hey, sometimes that games swing, things go a different way. I'm sorry. That's the other one too. I had Fresno State +1. Lost on the last play of the game.
I had them as a free pick last week in one of the videos. Yeah. Lost, but what, 3 seconds ago, or was it the last play of the game?
Last play of the game. Yep. 3 seconds to go. And they were going to kick the field goal. And then Fresno State called timeout. Oregon State brought their team back at the 2-yard line and scored the touchdown to win. So, hey, there's nothing you can do about those types of things.
No, I'd like to tell you they all even out, but I know I'm talking to the trees when I talk to you about that. You got that little black book with all those overtime losses in there.
I do. It's literally like 4 inches from my reach. So yes, I know where everything happened.
Doug, I don't know why I'm smiling, because only for the fact that we joke about this overtime thing with you, and it wasn't funny to me at the time because I had the Pittsburgh Panthers +6.5 on all the sites that I'm on. And, they lose by 7 in overtime. If I had to make that play, look, we lost the starting quarterback late in the second quarter. And there was a noticeable drop off when they went from Caden Slovis to the backup. And that really hurt us. But even with that, you get the game to overtime and you got an underdog. You made the right play. Now it's a matter of not being unlucky. And unfortunately, we were.
Yeah.
I went 4-2 in college football last week, but that one hurt because it was my top play. So fine line between 4-2 and 5-1, Doug. I went 3-2 in the NFL on Sunday, and highlighted by my 10-star top play on the New York Football Giants, plus the 5.5 outright over Tennessee. So it's been a good start to the college football season for me, going 9-4. 3-2 so far in week 1, and I have a Monday night play up in case you see this video before the game starts. You might want to take advantage of that because my football selections combined, college football, NFL, so far this season 12-6. Anyway, Doug, any interesting tidbits you like to discuss in terms of what we saw in college football week 2 and NFL week 1 as it applies to the sports betting world?
Yeah, well, the one that stands out, I talked about losing a quarterback. I mean, what would Texas have done if their quarterback hadn't gotten hurt? He was playing great. I mean, and they were outplaying Alabama. I don't know if it was decisively, but it certainly was convincing.
They were playing them on even terms at the very worst,
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, so that was the difference in the game. And, and then, and then even their backup is out there limping around Card, from that standpoint. So that, really couldn't drive the ball down the field. And, there had been talk, and, I was among those that was led to believe what I had read and heard, that this Alabama team could be as good as any of the teams that in the Nick Saban era. But boy, oh boy, they certainly did not didn't look the part, that's for sure,
Well,
from that standpoint. And then you had, I guess the most interesting news, I mean, you can cover, everybody has, Notre Dame losing and, and all the different things. But to me, okay, here's my thing. Here's the story of the week. It's the Sun Belt Conference.
oh yeah,
Okay.
good.
That is really, I mean, this conference, and to me, and I don't think I've talked about this to you, but the American Conference is going to lose a number of teams next year. So we don't know as far as power conference. Excuse me, still again with this cough. The power conferences, we don't know if there's going to be 4 or 5 going forward. That'll play out. But to me, the one level down, the conference to me that I think going forward is going to be a very, very good conference is the Sun Belt, because they have the players, okay, that's in the South. So the recruiting, very good football players. And a lot of these guys might not be, in some cases, 6'3" and 275, but they might be 6'1" and 250, but they can run just as well. They're just as proficient as a football player, and they just not at the top level because of their size or for whatever reason. So, I mean, I think they play a great brand of football. I don't know, great. They play a very good brand of football. I like what they do, and obviously they have good coaching, in that league. Yeah. So I watch out for the Sun Belt just going forward in general. And boy, we saw some of it this weekend, Ross.
Yeah, absolutely. Appalachian State knocking off Texas A&M, the number 6 team in the land, on the road as a 17-point dog. I cashed in with Georgia State plus 7.5 in that 7-point loss to North Carolina. A game was actually the Georgia State led late in the third quarter by 7 points, and then North Carolina scores 14 unanswered in the fourth. But right. Even last year, Doug, the Sun Belt was good. I mean, Louisiana Lafayette, now Billy Napier is now the head coach over at Florida, but when he was at UL Lafayette, they were tremendous, and that catapulted them to a Power 5 job in a very high profile situation at Florida. So, yeah, it's something to keep an eye on going forward. To me, the difference between that conference, especially at the top of the heap, when you're talking about the top 4 or 5 teams in that conference, and some of the Power 5 conference teams, is they match up well with their starting 22 against a lot of the Power 5 teams. When they get in trouble is when they have to match quality depth with quality depth when injuries come into play. And that's where they don't match up. And stop and think about it, Doug. I mean, they're getting very few. I don't know of any Sunbelt school that's recruited a 5-star athlete that's gone to their school in terms of college football, that is. And I would venture to say there's hardly been any 4-stars that would have went to a Sunbelt school up until this point anyway. Now, there may be rare occasions, but they're competing against schools like Texas A&M, App State. Texas A&M had the top 5 recruiting class since Jimbo Fisher has been there every year, so that was a major accomplishment there. And that goes to show you, folks, that's why college football is such a lovely game, is you never know on any given Saturday or any other day for that matter, who could pull an upset. And always something to talk about in terms of shocking results from the week before. Any other topic you want to touch upon, Doug?
Yeah. Along with that too, and I mean, we're only 2+ weeks in, and just get your opinion. Right now, I mean, and it's not really easy to tell, but it doesn't appear they're like last year right away we knew Alabama and Georgia were different than everybody else. Yeah. That was what it was going in, and we saw it immediately. I don't see any of those right now myself. Okay. I mean, I don't see any team that is just, Alabama was supposed to be, they're not there. We've seen Ohio State. They're not there. So I'm wondering if, this, by November, it'll be different. Okay. We can assume that at this point, but leading up to November, I think this has the potential certainly to be a very wild football season, which I think is good for the sport. I mean, I think everybody's a little bit tired of seeing, not that the same ones won't be there for for the Final Four spots, but leading up to that, I think we might see a lot of interesting football and a lot of shockers. And so, just I think gotta keep your eyes open on underdogs. That seems to be the case right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you're making a case for who's the strongest team in college football right now, I think they got the top team rated correctly, because Georgia's looked dominating in the first two games. I mean, look, last week, you can cast that aside because they should win that game by a lot of points. But I mean, the opening game against Oregon, they just shut them down 49-3. Oregon hung up 70 points on an FCS team last Saturday. And, that win by Ohio State over Notre Dame doesn't look so big right now, Doug.
It looks less.
Marshall. Yeah, and they struggled with Notre Dame for most of that game before they pulled away at the end. I mean, the final score was what, 21-10? So it wasn't really they didn't blow them out. And that's the same Notre Dame team that fell on their face against Marshall last week, 26-21 at home. Boy, oh boy. Again, Doug, the quarterback situation. Notre Dame is never going to – look, they've got to two college football playoffs. So I can't say they're never going to reach the destination of the college football playoff, because they've been there. But you made a good point last week, is maybe that's their plateau, because once they get to the college football playoff, they have a real difficult time even matching up with any of those top teams. I know is it Alabama they faced twice in the college football playoff?
Yep.
And they didn't even belong on the same field, so right. Even though they covered the one game in a 15-point loss as a 17-point dog, but point is, to win it all, you need a quarterback, man. You need a starting quarterback that's a dual threat. Okay. They continue to throw out these drop back passers, pro style offense. It doesn't work in this day and age. You need that elusive guys who could keep plays alive with their legs when things break down, keep their eyes downfield, or run the ball and move the sticks. And Notre Dame never seems to have that type of guy. Even under Brian Kelly, where they had some great years.
Yes. No, they used to be quarterback and years ago, Notre Dame, that was the most prestigious position maybe in the sport at the time, but that was yesteryear. That's a long time ago now. Okay. That's not how the game is played. And let's face it. I mean, it started in the NFL. It has trickled down to the college level, is that how you win is having an NFL style quarterback. Okay. Yeah. Might not be the best quarterback in the country, maybe not even the best in the conference, depending on who's in the conference, but you have to have an NFL quality quarterback. And look at, Mariota is the guy for now, with Atlanta. But this Desmond Ridder, all reports have him looking very, very good for the Falcons. I'm not saying he's going to be the best quarterback in the NFL, but if he has NFL quality and he becomes a starter, he might get criticized because he might be in the lower half. But you know what? He's an NFL quarterback, and he's a big reason why Cincinnati made the run that they had made in the past few years.
Yeah, well, even Marcus Mariota, you just mentioned him. It's a guy who can keep plays alive with his legs. You know what I mean? If he needs them, he's not as mobile as he used to be in his college days, but he's still very athletic and still could move the sticks on third and long if nobody's open and the other team's playing man. He's still good in that regard. His arm strength leaves a lot to be desired. And so we'll see. Arthur Jones I think is an excellent head coach. I know that sounds crazy, Doug. They went 7-10 last year. They gave that game away yesterday. They were in total control of that game, but winning teams know how to win, and losing teams know how to lose, and
find a way. Yeah. No, they had a great game plan more than anything. That was the thing. They had New Orleans on their heels the entire game. It's not. I look at it this way: is that you and I had a difference of opinion on that game last week. In terms of your free pick, but the fact of the matter is, in watching the game, is that it's not Atlanta's fault that New Orleans didn't come to play and wasn't prepared. They did what they were supposed to do, and they just couldn't make it hold up for all 4 quarters. And that's really the game. But they covered the spread. They got the job done. And I was very impressed with. I mean, they ran for 201 yards, Ross, against New Orleans defense.
Yeah.
Wow, that was impressive. Now,
it's not.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I'm sorry, Doug.
No, all I was going to say is that do we have a moment of silence now for Scott Frost at Nebraska? That was the only.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, okay, and follow me on this, Doug. If you're gonna fire the guy after all the bad that's been going on in Nebraska over the last couple of years, yeah, I get it. They lost 9 games by single-digit numbers last year. 8 of them were one-score games. I get the fact that he's lost 17 one-score games since he's been there. But the fact of the matter is, you gave this guy a reprieve. You gave him a pass. You gave him an ultimatum of put up or shut up this year. And I get the fact that they're the 1-2 start with their only win coming against an FCS team and basically blowing a game against Northwestern in Ireland. And then this past, Saturday was just ridiculous what were they, 24-point favorite in that game?
Yeah.
And they lose the game outright to a team that's coached by Todd Helton. Is it
Clay?
Yeah.
Clay Helton.
Clay Helton from former USC coach. So, my point is, if you're going to fire a guy after 2 games, why did you even go in the year with him? Because now you might as well write the season off, because now there's an interim tag stuck on somebody, okay? Now the kids have a lot of uncertainty because they've been recruited by Scott Frost. They don't know if the next guy coming in, who that might be. And, here we go again with the transfer portal. I can guarantee you Nebraska's transfer portal is going to be quite a long list unless somebody who takes over on an interim basis. And I'm not sure who that is right now. Maybe you
Joseph, I believe, is their coach.
Yep. Yeah. Now, if they go 7-2 or 7-3 the rest of the way, 7-2, say, he might make a case for him being the head coach, and that it's the same regime. I'm sure, certainly think that he would keep his staff there, but who knows? But it's, to me, if that move is going to be made, you make it before the season starts. And you at least let this guy go into conference play and give him a chance in conference play. Yeah. Because you never know. But go ahead.
Yeah. Here's the one thing. I saw this today, and, and it was like, to me, I mean, obviously, I'm as surprised as anybody he didn't have success there. But obviously, he's got some problems, both just as a coach, and probably to a certain degree as a person. But here's the thing. Up to this past Saturday, Nebraska, since 1901, has won 254 games in Lincoln since when they scored 35 or more points. Saturday was the first time since 1901 that they lost in that situation. You know what? When I look at that, and given where things are going, and what are you going to do? I mean, he's done, so you might as well look to start to find your guy now. You're throwing away the season, no question, and you're throwing away an extra, $8 million, because they could have waited 2 more weeks and gotten rid of him for a lesser price on his contract. But you know what? Sometimes you just got to cut bait, and hopefully you make the right decision going forward.
I get it, but I think you at least understand.
I know exactly what you're saying, and it's not an arguable point. I mean, but I get it. I see I can see both sides as to why, and he just didn't get bottom line. He didn't get the job done. They move on. But also people, and every school has it, especially from the old days. Nebraska, it's not 1995 anymore, fans.
Exactly.
It's never coming back in the fashion that it was. It just isn't.
And, in their defense, I don't know what goes on behind closed doors. I mean, there might have been a situation that they well intended to give him a chance, at least going into conference play. But something might have happened that we don't know about too.
Yeah.
Beyond what we already know about the losing to teams they should beat and the close losses. And look, at the end of the day, when you lose that many close games, 1-score games, you're like 5-22 in 1-score games under his regime. It all points back to coaching.
For sure it does.
At some point or another, during at least half of those losses, he made some blatant mistakes in terms of game management. Yep. We saw with the onside kick with an 11-point lead against Northwestern. We saw it last week, even in the win against that FCS team, where he tried a squib kick, with a big lead, and the other team recovered and got it around midfield. So there's a lot of things that we just don't comprehend or don't know, aren't privy to. But by the same token, look, it was really weird, by the way, to see Georgia Southern throw the ball as much as they did, because for years they were that triple option.
Right in the option, yep.
And Kyle Van Treese, the former, I believe he was with Florida, right, Doug?
I believe that's correct, yes. And what conference is that again that they play in, Ross?
The Sun Belt, yes,
sir. Oh, the Sun Belt. There we go.
Gotta love them Sun Belt teams. All right, Doug. Enough of the chatter here, folks. Thank you for being patient. I hope you picked up some tips along the way and you enjoyed our conversation. If not, here you go. We're going to make your stay worthwhile, because me and Doug over the last 2 weeks have gone a combined 6-2 with our free picks on the Winner's Circle podcast, and that includes our Monday and Thursday broadcast. We went 2-0 in the NFL this past Thursday, and the only loss we had in college football last week is the game that me and Doug were talking about, the Pittsburgh game, which Doug lost by 0.5 point, and I did too with my premium 10-star top play, because the game went overtime, and they were plus 6.5, and they lost by 7. Anyway, go ahead, Doug. I'll let you take the stage. You're going to take a look at that game, intriguing matchup at that. Purdue travels to, can't call it the Carrier Dome anymore, Doug. So I'm going to just say Syracuse travels to Syracuse in the Dome to play the Orangemen. Right now, that's a pick'em game, and that game's going to be on ESPN too. Tell us about it, Doug.
Yeah, at high noon in the East. So, yes, so it's going to be something. Now, Syracuse, they're off to a 2-0 start. That's their best start in 4 years. And they've made some really, I think, smart decisions on offense and defense. The ones on offense, the alterations revolve around the ability to hit throwing the ball more and more consistently down the field. Now, I wasn't sure that Garrett Schrader could be able to do that well, because he's a great runner and has been an inconsistent passer, in his time at Syracuse. But I think the staff there has determined what he does best and worked with him. And so they're throwing, and the passes that they're attempting are things he's very comfortable in doing. So I think that has really helped. And he's right now, Ross, he's completing, I know it's only 2 games, but he's completing almost 80% of his passes. So, and he's been also much more patient in the pocket, in prior years. As soon as the first rusher, got in his face, he took off. Now he's standing a little bit more in the pocket. So that's really been a big plus. The other thing is the Orange defense, much more aggressive. They've held their last 2 opponents to 91 yards below their season average and only given up 10.5 points per game while forcing 5 turnovers and committing not a single one. Now, the Purdue comes into this one. They lost to Penn State in a very winnable game, and then last week the Boilers boiled Indiana State 52-0, and they're going to be hitting the road for the first time. Now, I like this Aiden O'Connell as their quarterback. He also has gotten off to a fast start, not quite the high percentage that Schrader has. He's at 59%, but Purdue's pass offense, is a lot different. They throw a lot of those deep slant routes, and then a lot of the out routes, especially to the wide side of the field. So they get a lot of chunk plays. Now, the Purdue defense is only permitting 2.2 yards per carry thus far and has been very stout. Penn State had some things work for them. They had better quality receivers, and it made some big plays against Jeff Brom's team, especially they took some poor angles in the secondary. So I think that's what really hurt them there. And their tackling wasn't that great. I'm going to assume that it's going to be better. Now, on this one, Ross, the thing I'm looking at here, you mentioned the side is a pick 'em. The total is 58.5. And I'm going to give out a rare total play on this show this week.
All right.
I like where both defenses are right now. And in terms of that, so what can happen? Purdue comes into this one 16-6 under in away games under Coach Brown, whereas the 'Cuse is 19-6 after a double-digit favorite cover and 14-2 under off 2 straight wins by 17 or more points. So you figured it out. I'm going under the 58.5 on this ESPN high noon game between Purdue and Syracuse.
Purdue and Syracuse under the total of 58.5. Those 2 corners for Syracuse, not a lot of people realize it. Those 2 guys are going to be playing on Sunday. Deuce Chestnut, and the other kid's name escapes me, but he's really good. And look, I mean, they held Louisville to 7 points. Louisville comes back with an upset win at Central Florida last week. They go to Connecticut. Connecticut's terrible, right? I get it. But, in a spot where they very well could have been flat over a, upset win against Louisville in their season opener, and knowing they're going to host a Big Ten team the following week and a good Big Ten team in Purdue, they could have been flat last week, but 48-14 over Connecticut, a game they really just toyed with the Huskies. Didn't even look like they looked like they were going through the motions, to be quite honest with you. And that was still good enough. So we'll see. I mean, I can't disagree with that pick because, one thing about Purdue, they're stopping the run, but they haven't faced Sean Tucker yet. So that will be a challenge. And I'm not saying they won't be able to stop Sean Tucker, but there was no Sean Tuckers the first 2 games they played, even no back from Penn State is of that caliber. So we'll see. I think you could be looking at a 24-21, 24-20 type of game. And Doug likes that under, and that's a really high number with all being considered. I get that Purdue is a passing offense, and I do like O'Connell as well as their quarterback. I liked them last year. But again, keep in mind, folks, Syracuse's defense is no joke. Even last year when they went 5-7, they gave up like 330 yards per game. So, and now their offense is clicking. And Garrett Schrader, like Doug just said, and it's an interesting point you made, Doug, because there's a different offensive coordinator this year. And this guy was a 53% passer at Mississippi State when he started as a freshman. And last year in his starts, I think he was maybe around 54%. And now he's at 80%. So what Doug said about giving him something he's comfortable with, it's obviously working. All right, I'm going to take a look at the Penn State and Auburn game, Doug. And, this is another intriguing matchup. 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. This game will be on CBS, so nationally televised as well. Right now, Penn State's a 3-point road favorite. Just opened at 1, quickly went to 3. And both of these teams have started 2-0. And Penn State 35-31 at Purdue, like Doug just touched upon. And then last week, a 46-10 demolition of Ohio University, while Auburn 42-16 against FCS Mercer in their first game. And then 24-16 lackluster home effort over San Jose State last week, not even coming close to covering as a better than 3 touchdown favorite. Why do I mention those final scores? Well, it's very important because I have a college football betting angle. Anytime you have a college football home team like Auburn, who's coming off back-to-back games in which they allowed back-to-back wins in which they allowed 17 or less, and they're playing an opponent like Penn State who scored Penn State that scored 31 or more in each of their last 2 games. 43-10 straight up are the home teams in that situation. That's 81.1%. You might ask me, Russ, but that's a straight up betting angle. Yeah, but it supports the underdog. So think about that. Here's another thing. Since 1999, Auburn in non-conference home games versus FBS opponents, not FCS opponents, FBS. So against top quality competition since 1999, 49-4 straight up at home against FBS opponents, non-conference FBS opponents, to be specific, and 35-1 straight up if those non-conference opponents had at least 1 win on the season. So Auburn's also going to be playing with revenge from a 28-20 loss at Penn State last year. I'm going to take the Auburn Tigers at home, Doug, plus the 3 over Penn State.
I like it, Ross. That's an interesting one because it's a big game for Auburn coach Brian Harsin.
Yep.
He's under the gun there, and he didn't help himself last week, like you said, with that narrow win over a pretty mediocre San Jose State team. But you know what? I like it, Ross. I think you're onto something there.
Yeah, so we'll see. So we're going to take I'm on Penn State, or excuse me, Auburn plus the 3 over Penn State. And Doug Upstone, tell the folks who you have and what you got coming up, my friend.
I got the under with Syracuse and Purdue. That's under 58.5 as we do the show. And so, like I said, hit my big play last week, looking for another coming up this upcoming week. So that should be good. As opposed to Ross, I didn't do as well in the NFL. So it just wasn't my week last week. Just one of those things, just missed a couple of plays. But you know what? As it turns out, the early season hasn't been good. And some people like Ross have done good. Others like me haven't done quite as well. But we still, hey, you know what? As we do this, like Ross said at the beginning, September 12th, we don't panic. Okay.
No,
we're not Nebraska. We're not going to panic. Okay. we're
good analogy, buddy.
And so we're gonna keep pounding away here. We're gonna get this turned around. I've won 4 of the last 5 years in football, and the last 2, so ready to go there. And then I'll wrap it up by telling you that in baseball, on a nice 10-3 run as we head down the stretch. So been posting a number of winners, and hey, check me out. Okay, you can bet football all you want in the weekend. Check me out during the week for some baseball picks.
Very
Ross,
good, Doug.
take it away.
My college football 9-4 so far. And then if you date back to last season, since late October of last season, 45-30 with my last 75 college football picks. That's exactly 60%. Those are all documented by sportscapping.com. And like I said, my NFL off to a 3-2 start. Combined NFL college football 12-6, rbwins.com, all my daily packages, whether they be single game or multi-game packages, all guaranteed. If you don't win, you don't make a profit, I'm going to credit your account back the exact amount of your purchase price, so you can use that any which way you like toward future purchases. That's